A pleasure to meet y'all at last, and welcome back to films I'm willing to talk about again. And maybe more importantly, now would be a great time to talk a little bit about something that was really special. Something that I feel like is on par with the likes of the nostalgia that I always tend to get from the Magic Railroad, the Toy Story films, and of course, we certainly cannot forget about the likes of Old Yeller and Homeward Bound. These were films that I've already covered recently, so they'll be right up your alley whenever you go select this playlist. But if you're watching right now, then well, you probably know one of the more obvious picks that I've basically been able to obtain: Hot Wheels Highway 35 World Race from 2003. This is one that I've talked a bit about before simply because of Hot Wheels' hilarity. This is in fact a web series that I made which was inspired by the likes of Ghost Jerker, Race Grooves, and a medley of other YouTube channels that are associated with Hot Wheels based track racing and whatnot. But in the case of the movies that came out based on the Hot Wheels die-cast toys made by Mattel since 1968, it's fair to say that it's a bit of a rare collection out there because it's not really a common thing to see these kinds of toys being turned into movies. At least by now, we don't tend to see that as much. But back then, we were able to see that happen a lot. Thomas got turned into a feature film in 2000, and then of course we saw the likes of others, from Transformers, My Little Pony, G.I. Joe, and a medley of other things out there, especially throughout the 2000s and 2010s. In 2003, however, this was a time when a lot of films came out. And as the year came and went, a lot of other things would happen as well. That whole year has had a lot of significance for American and even worldwide history and culture. But that year did in fact end on a high note. Not counting the fact that Kiko the Whale from the Free Willy trilogy had died from pneumonia, but I'm specifically talking about the release of this one film. Pretty much a rare example of a special kind of CGI animation. One that was in fact done with a variety of different techniques. And this was unlike any other variation of CG that had been done before, as this was in fact done by a company known as Mainframe Entertainment, a Canadian-based production company that Mattel basically gave the rights to create a feature-length movie based on their best-selling toys, but also to give us a bit of a different approach to how the franchise itself would turn out, because this was pretty much the only ever time that Mattel had decided to create a feature-length film that was solely based off of their long-running franchise of die-cast toys. So in any case though, a lot of people consider this the golden age of Hot Wheels related TV and movie based media, as this film does a lot of things. It basically gives us a unique cast, which of course was comprised of different actors that were around in the 90s and 2000s, from the likes of Andrew Francis, Brian Drummond, Venus Terzo, Michael Donovan, and Kathleen Barr. We do get to see a lot of things take place. Though, of course, the one thing about this movie that really intrigued many of us were the cars. This film is in fact known as Highway 35, or at least the start of what was known at the time as the Highway 35 continuity, where it included 35 different cars that Mattel had made over the years. And a lot of cars out there that were considered popular for the time, including Dior 2, Crazy 8, the 70 Plymouth Roadrunner, Slingshot, Ballistic, and a variety of other models out there. A collection of 35 in total across the board from 5 different teams that would compete against each other to win the Wheel of Power, as well as a $5 million paycheck for each and every winning member of the team by Dr. Peter Tesla himself, the founder/president of the Scrim Corporation, a company specifically founded on the basis of highly advanced racing technology. And all 35 of these cars were basically high-end experiments turned into professional works of art, complete with a variety of different things out there, from increased durability against the likes of a major collision to the trademark Nitrox fuel system. This was essentially a nitrous fuel system designed to boost the cars up to 300 miles per hour. And upon activation of 300 miles per hour, it sends out a signal that allows a portal to be opened. An ancient mythological series of beings known as the Accelerons, according to Peter Tesla, were in fact responsible for creating a series of racetracks that interloop between different dimensions, including the real world. And they were specifically made for one thing in mind: to race across the entire length of the dimensional spectrum and end up all the way up in a place that is later named within the film as Hot Wheels City. And there's a lot of wild fan theories and some conspiracies that people have pretty much made up over the years concerning the lore behind this whole thing. That Hot Wheels City, which is a lot more popular today and is pretty much a big thing out there in the terms of most products that Hot Wheels themselves sell nowadays. They do believe that the movie itself was to blame pretty much for creating this little trendy name out there known as Hot Wheels City. And while it might be more popular nowadays, back then it was not necessarily quite as big of a thing out there. Though with this movie they were able to start with this sort of thing out there. But in any case though, the 5 teams known as the Wave Rippers, Scorchers, Street Breed, Road Beasts, and Dune Rats. All 5 of these teams, with 7 drivers in total, 35 as a whole, ergo the name Highway 35, they all race together to ensure that one of which will be able to claim the Wheel of Power. And after racing through 4 different dimensions, one of which looked to be a different planet, one of which was a bit more like a jungle run, the third one was a bit about racing the dunes, which was pretty much the Dune Rats' home, and then finally an Arctic-based dimension that each of the portals would guide the racers into, both to and from these dimensions. After each and every leg of the race is pretty much done, Peter Tesla does happen to inform them of a lot of different things that happen. Yet at the same time, a corporation known as the Clip Organization, which is run by a cyborg known as Galorum, and who also secretly employ the likes of driver Kurt Wilde, whom is in fact a high professional racer, most notably in Grand Prix throughout the decades. But this one driver, whom is also the leader of the Street Breed team, was hired by Galorum to spy on the rest of the racers and attempt to claim the Wheel of Power for himself. However, it's later revealed that Galorum is in fact an actual drone, much like a majority of the other racers that happen to be going up against the rest of the teams in all cases to obtain the Wheel of Power for themselves. And the most part here is that Galorum wants to use them to claim the Wheel of Power for herself and take over these dimensions, to race across them all and be sure that the Accelerons know that they have some sort of message for them. It might seem like a bit of a confusing array of different events, but that's because canonically it's not necessarily explained very well. And so I feel like that's just why we aren't seeing a whole lot of things about this that might be better than what we've seen before then. But at least for the very first occasion, being a Hot Wheels feature-length film, this one does extremely well. So well that it not only gave Hot Wheels themselves and Mattel a huge array of different things out there, from profits to media expansions to endorsements, not to mention an animated series that would follow up and continue the story known as the Acceleracers, which I'll probably talk a bit about according to another series of mine I plan on starting soon. Mattel themselves did a lot of fine work on this one. This was unlike more different kinds of CG that I've ever seen. This was definitely unlike more of anything that I've ever possibly identified. And I'm not just saying it because it looks amazing and also feels amazing, complete with the soundtrack by Ball of Wax, who basically composed the different theme songs for each of the individual teams, of which, if you remember from when I did Hot Wheels Hilarity Under the Spotlight last year, you would be able to hear these theme songs playing in the background. So, of course, I myself do my part on the whole entire thing about popularizing this one movie itself. But of all things considered, this is one that should certainly not be forgotten. It's done a lot of service for us as fans of the long-running Toy series, and as the fact that we will be getting more of this sort of media at some point. Also considering the fact that Hot Wheels are related media, not just from this one movie, but also with video games like Velocity X and the much more recent Unleashed, released last year, which I have played before even. I'm not really positive about what's going to happen in the future, but hopefully we will get to see more of this kind of stuff happen from here on out. And with that in mind, that pretty much is all I'll be able to do to cover up on this whole entire thing. But I can sure tell you, it's an amazing movie and it's definitely worth multiple watches. I've seen this and I've also seen the Accelerator series, which, as I've said before, there will be a separate series I'll have on TV shows, which I will cover next year. So, do be sure to keep a lookout for that sort of thing. And if you want to see more go down on my channel, then make sure that you like, subscribe, comment, follow me on social media, and stay on the Hollywood side.